The Arteon is an interesting vehicle in the Volkswagen Group stable because it is effectively Volkswagen's flagship car here in Australia, sitting beneath the flagship SUV, the Touareg. Now, it doesn't cost as much as a Touareg, obviously. This car I have behind me, the 206 TSI R-Line flagship, starts at $67,500, and on the road here in New South Wales, that's going to get you to about $74,000 drive away. So it's actually pretty affordable, especially when compared to a vehicle such as the Audi A5 Sportback, a very similar kind of design, that four-door coupe with pillarless doors and a nice practical liftback. Yet this car is quite a lot larger physically and inside than the A5 Sportback. In fact, it's more on size comparison with the next level up, the A7 Sportback, and yet it is quite a lot more affordable than that vehicle. So that should mean the Arteon is a good buy, and yet here in Australia it just simply doesn't sell as well as either of those cars. We're going to be finding out in today's review whether or not that's justified in our independent testing by taking this 206 TSI through the ringer. We're going to be checking out the cabin, checking out the driving experience and what it's like to live with, what it costs to live with, and seeing whether or not the Arteon is a good buy. So stay tuned for that, for this car that is a competitor to something like a Skoda Superb and a Kia Stinger. And of course, I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments section down below. So leave it down there. And if you haven't done so already, we'd also love it if you could hit subscribe. The basic shape of this Arteon emerged in 2017, but it was treated to a facelift in the middle of last year, and now we've got that facelift here in Australia. It arrived in the first quarter of this year after some production hang-ups and all that sort of thing. Ultimately though, I think this facelift is really successful. It sharpens up the Arteon, which is already handsome in its proportions. It's a proper big long car at over 4.8 meters long, almost 4.85 meters in length. This thing has some real road presence. That's added to by the new LED headlights and the signature that ties across all the way through the grille when the headlights are on at night, which gives this car a little bit more of an edge to it. It's really accentuates the width of this vehicle, and I think it looks pretty handsome, but of course design is subjective, so let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Now you can tell this is the R-Line because it does have a couple of styling tweaks over the base model Elegance, which is now 61 grand. For that extra 7 grand, you do get a all-wheel drive powertrain with extra power, but you do get as well this R-Line styling package, so a little bit more black in the front bumper, though the grille is still chrome, which I like, though I know our man Ponch doesn't like that, and I'm sure he'd love to see them blacked out. You also get these 20-inch Nashville alloy wheels, which I think sort of suit the look of this car, this sort of extended, suave chicness of the four-door liftback, and then of course we get little R-Line design flourishes. We still get plenty of chrome, which again, I like, but you can let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Ultimately though, I do think this is a successful facelift, and I think over time, since the 2008 Volkswagen Passat CC performance concept, this idea did get a little bit lost, but I think the facelifted Arteon has really found where that body style was supposed to be in the first place, where that concept car was, that sharpness without sacrificing some of the practicality and being able to fly under the radar. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, and let's jump around to the boot and see how practical this car is. Now around the back of the Volkswagen Arteon, and as swoopy and as chic and suave as this thing looks in sedan slash liftback body style, personally I'd go for the new shooting brake slash wagon body style that is offered in Australia. I just think that that looks absolutely fantastic, though I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now popping the boot, it is done with the Volkswagen emblem, which is nice and classy, and of course it's a power tailgate at $70,000 roughly here with the panoramic sunroof. Opening that, we get 563 litres of boot space. It's a very generous boot back here. You've got plenty of space up there, and it's really easy to fit a bicycle or other large items into the back of the Arteon. And of course, if you lift up the boot floor, which is very nicely finished, you also get a full-size spare tyre and the subwoofer that's hooked up to the rest of the 10 speakers with the Harman Kardon stereo. You also get stuff like curry hooks, and yeah, it just feels really nicely finished. So after testing the soccer balls in the Arteon, we've actually found that this is the most spacious car by this metric that we've ever tested here at Chasing Cars. We fit 60 soccer balls into this 563 litre boot, beating things like the Toyota Land Cruiser, the Land Rover Discovery 5, and even more cars that should do better than this. So that shows you don't need an SUV to be a soccer mum, you can use an Arteon. Outside, the Volkswagen Arteon may have the suave and chic styling of something much like an Audi A7, but in here it is definitely related to the Volkswagen Group, and you can really see its MQB underpinnings. It feels quite like a Passat in a lot of the switchgear and hard points in here, but to be fair, that's actually no bad thing because it bridges the gap between perhaps overly complicated tech-heavy Golf and the previous generation of Volkswagen infotainment. So you've got this 9.2-inch touchscreen here, which is a good size, and it feels nice and crisp, and it is sort of responsive to your hand coming towards it, but it's not haptic touch or anything. You've got shortcut buttons on the side for home, menu, and volume controls as well. No physical dial, but you sort of get used to that. And of course, we've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto now in 2022, and that works so seamlessly in this car. It just integrates really nicely. You hop in with your phone in your pocket, you can mirror whatever you want and play your favorite music. But of course, you do have the option of using Volkswagen's own maps, which are really good, and they appear in the 12.3-inch digital driver's display ahead of me, and that allows you to sort of really predict the road ahead. There are several views here, but I kind of like the one that imitates analog dials because I'm a bit of a fan of analog dials. Now, the rest of the cabin is well presented. You've got this aluminium effect up here, ambient orange lighting down here that sort of adds a nice warm Germanic orange glow to this car at night. It feels nice and classy, and then the appointments are all very decent. The armrests are nice and squishy. The top of the doors have this stitching up here and sort of a leather look. Same up here on the dashboard. It all feels pretty decent and really well screwed together. The only bits of sort of hard scratchy plastic are found down here below the belt line, just around the shifter, and the doors are scratchy as well. But inside the door bins are flock lined, so that sort of goes some way to make it feel a little bit more premium and well thought out, this car. And it does feel well thought out. Everything falls to hand quite nicely, even though we have this new Volkswagen steering wheel with its sort of haptic-ish touch steering wheel buttons that are a bit difficult to wrap your head around. But once you've spent a bit of time in this car, you get used to it. And the steering wheel itself is actually just so nice to hold. You can almost ignore that. This R-Line steering wheels is a good thickness without being too thick or overly padded like a BMW steering wheel. Now, as for options, this car only has one option that you can choose, and that is this sunroof, which Volkswagen refers to as a panoramic glass sunroof, but it's not. It's just a portal sunroof. It does go a long way back for a portal sunroof, but it doesn't cover the rear seat. So in my mind, that's a sunroof. $2,000, and then the exterior colorway, Lapis Blue. It's a lovely color, the same as you'd find on a Golf R hatch or wagon, or Tiguan R, or forthcoming Touareg R plug-in hybrid, is free of charge. The only option is a pearlescent white, which is $800. And these seats themselves are appointed in Napa leather as standard on this R-Line, but they're also Napa leather in the base model Elegance, which is about $7,000 less than this car, or $6,500. And that's where we come to the point where I think the Elegance is actually a better buy for most people. Yes, you miss out on the sporty R-Line styling outside and so much of the piano black in here, but you actually get cooled seats. These in the R-Line are only ventilated. They're 12-way adjustable in the base car, heated and cooled. They're 16-way in this car with lumbar and tilt adjust and 3-position memory. But yeah, you only get heating. So it's not so great for the Australian summer, though they are lovely and supportive. They're this Volkswagen bucket seat that feels really nice to sit in for long journeys. You can adopt a great driving position. And it does have an interesting blend of suave slickness with just consistent and easy to use and easy to interact with functionality that feels like a Volkswagen Group product. So it sort of toes the line between true premium automobile and something that's a little bit more usable, a little bit more accessible and pragmatic. And that's why this car is quite an interesting option that I think you should probably consider if you're looking in this market space. The back seat of the Arteon is a very generous place to be. I've got oodles of knee room behind my driving position, which is pretty rare to see when you're 6'2" tall like me. Tow room as well is decent for a sedan, though not as good as you get in something like a Tiguan R-Line or a base model Touareg. The only problem really is a little bit of headroom, and I can see why they didn't extend the sunroof all the way back in this lift back example, because I am a little bit tight if I relax right back into this very comfortable, supportive and reclined bench. The materials back here stay really nice and high quality, the same Napa leather that you get in the front seats, and you get a nice soft door card here, a little bit of extra leatherette padding here with some snazzy stitching and a soft armrest, and the flockline door bins continue in the back here, so Volkswagen hasn't sort of skimped in this $70,000 roughly saloon. Feels nice and high quality and would be a really interesting option for a high quality rideshare vehicle, I think. You've also got your own climate control zone back here with adjustable vents and outboard seat heating for both of the seats here. That's a really nice touch. The headrests as well are super plush and super comfortable, and there's just a lot of space on offer. Now there is one issue, and it's an issue we're seeing crop up in a lot of these Gran Coupe / liftback style vehicles. I think as well in the Skoda Superb, which is kind of this car's direct in-house Volkswagen Group rival, but even in stuff like the BMW i4 and the Audi A5 Sportback, the windows don't go all the way down, which is a little bit annoying if you want to fit kiddies in the back seat and they want to be able to have a lot of fresh air, but you know, that could be a deal breaker, but it could not be a deal breaker equally. I should add about the windows, they are frameless, and the front windows do have double glazing, which should mean that this car is nicely insulated on the road, which we'll check out soon. Finally, we've finished off with a really nice plush armrest here with 2.5 cup holders for something like a little espresso cup in the middle. Now let's quickly test out how the baby seats fit in the back of this Arteon. Fitting the children's seats to the Volkswagen Arteon was actually no stress at all, owing to the fact probably it's such a large vehicle. But even with its low roofline being less than 1.5 meters tall, it's not that hard to throw the baby seats in. The doors open pretty wide for a vehicle like this, so there's not a huge reason to go for something like a Tiguan or a Touareg over this if you need to carry children. Even with the rear-facing child seat in behind the passenger, you don't actually need to move the seat that far forward. The only real problem is the width across the back of the bench and the fact that the middle seat is a little bit higher set than the outboard seats. So sitting here, my head is touching the roof a little bit uncomfortably and there's a bit of a transmission tunnel. But on the whole, this thing would actually be pretty easy to live with if you had to put baby seats in the back. The ADR combined fuel consumption figure for the Volkswagen Arteon 206 TSI R-Line is 7.5 litres per 100 Ks. However, in practice, we've seen that floating around 10 to 10.5 litres per 100 Ks, depending on driving circumstances. Now, you will need to fuel the Arteon with premium unleaded petrol. 95 is actually the minimum, with Volkswagen recommending that you run 98 octane fuel in your car, which is a little bit more expensive than what you'd be able to fuel something like a Hyundai Sonata N-Line on. However, the payoff is the fact that you emit less sulfurous and particulate emissions into the atmosphere, and I reckon that's actually kind of a good thing. Servicing is due every 12 months or 15,000 kilometers, and Volkswagen will sell you a 5-year care plan for this Arteon, costing $2,700. And the warranty for the Arteon is 5 years and unlimited kilometers. So the Volkswagen Arteon has impressed me so far with its rather nicely appointed cabin, decent exterior looks, and relative affordability for the amount of options you get. But how does this 206 TSI R-Line drive out here on the open road? Well, it starts with the engine. It's a 2-litre unit. It's very familiar from the Volkswagen Group family, found in all manner of vehicles from mid-spec Skoda Octavias all the way up to Golf GTIs and Golf Rs. So it has been around for a long time, the EA888. In this car, it's got the 206 kilowatt, 350 Newton meter tune, the same tune as that Passat 206 TSI R-Line Tom drove a little while ago and was really impressed with. And I have to say, it is a lovely engine. It's pretty well refined, though I will say this car's styling does feel like it could maybe do with a 6-cylinder down the track, but the NQB platform is basically built around a transversely oriented engine, which means that that's not easily possible basically for the Volkswagen Group. It's not cost effective to do it in something like this Arteon. So we have an engine that is pretty decent. It does sound a little bit grumbly like a classic Euro 4-cylinder, but it gets the job done. There is a sport mode sort of sound program that I'll switch over to now that gives us sort of synthesized noise, which you might like. I find perhaps it's a bit much. Doesn't really suit the character of this car that well. When you're in normal, it's toned down, and you've got individual mode as well, so you can customize that to have it set up to however you like. This car is available with a more powerful tune overseas as well. So in the UK, you can get the Arteon R, not just the R-Line, which ramps things up to 235 kilowatts. But really, with the Haldex type all-wheel drive system in this, it feels a really nice match for the amount of power, the amount of grip, and the sort of vibes this car gives off. It's quite a relaxed kind of tourer, but it does have that turn of speed. 5.6 seconds is the 0 to 100k an hour claim, and that feels pretty realistic in the world. Testing it out here on open roads. Most of that power comes right in the mid-range too, between 2.5 and 4,500 RPM. It revs out pretty sweetly and smoothly, but it doesn't feel like it needs to go there. I should add, it's not the lightest car in the world with a claimed tare weight of 1,658 kilos. It is getting up there, but compared to other vehicles in this sort of large car liftback segment, such as the Audi A7, it is a little bit lighter, and it's lighter than the Kia Stinger as well, which I guess is what you'd really be comparing this car to if you were looking to buy one. Now, let's go back to the drive modes a little bit, because as standard, all Volkswagen Arteons come with adaptive dampers. So even the 140 TSI Elegance with its 140 kilowatt, 320 Newton meter, 2-litre turbocharged petrol 4-cylinder, sending power to the front wheels, gets adaptive dampers. And there is a really broad spread. There's the same damper settings that you get in a Golf GTI. So you get, I think it's 18 settings. It's a lot. You can go below comfort if you want maximum softness, and you can go above sport if you want real stiffness. But in practice, I've found my preference to be just a little shy of normal in regular driving, because normal can be a little bit firm and a little bit crashy when it's equipped with these 20-inch alloy wheels with 35 series Pirelli P0 tyres, you can get a little bit of crash through, especially on New South Wales is currently very, very pockmarked and broken up roads with lots of potholes. So yeah, a little softer than normal is a really nice everyday use case, and if you want to go quickly on a twisting country road, then you can ramp it up a little bit above normal, and that's a nice little balance. I find that works really well. Speaking of which, the Arteon has a really lovely gait to it when you're cruising down a country road. There's plenty of talent in this chassis, and although it doesn't reach the dynamic polish and the total high heights of a Golf R or something like that, it gets kind of close. It feels very, very faithful and quite precise. The steering is nice and sharp. It's got the variable rate Servotronic steering that Volkswagen fits to most of its R-Line products, and it just feels very natural. Not super heavy, but then not too light either when you ramp it up into sport mode. It gives a fair amount of confidence to the driver, and you can really make decent progress with this car, and the body control from the adaptive dampers is pretty much always there when you want it to be as well, which is great. It means you can trust this car and cruise along a country road at speed, but probably not at Mach 10, but that's not what this car is all about anyway. So I think it's really well suited for the purpose that it is designed to carry out. Now, what about safety? This car was rated 5 stars in its 2017 ANCAP testing in Australia, and all the aids have been just massaged with the facelift to become that little bit better. So you get standard highway travel assist with adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist that works really nicely. Front AEB, you get a 360 camera as well, which is a little bit grainy, not the best in class, but also not as bad as something you'd see on a Toyota perhaps. And you get front parking sensors, rear parking sensors, auto park, blind spot monitoring, and a really nicely tuned reverse AEB. Even though it doesn't say it has that on ANCAP, when you get close to a bush, when you're maneuvering, the car does stop for you. So that's a really nice little touch, and it means that the Arteon is just a really nicely rounded everyday package, which I think you might really learn to love. So what do we think of the refreshed Volkswagen Arteon lineup? Well, it's still a really lovely car. The 206 TSI R-Line is quick and suave out on the road, and it drives beautifully with its MQB underpinnings. You could really get everything you need from the base model 140 TSI Elegance. It even has cooled seats inside, despite the fact that it costs a little bit less than this flagship car. But that's going to be up to your preference, whether you want performance or absolute comfort. And I think that Volkswagen has done actually quite a smart job in separating the range into performance and comfort oriented rather than stepping up through different specifications. But I'd love to hear your comments on the new Arteon in the comments section down below. Would you like the shooting brake, or do you rather like this liftback body style? Let me know your opinion down below. And while you're down there, we'd also love it if you could hit subscribe to the Chasing Cars channel if you haven't done so already. And as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.